All right, welcome back to Questions for Christians. And I got another question. For all you mature, adult Christians, why won't you just concede that the Old Testament is just a bunch of nonsense fables? Let's just put God's emotions or God's power and Jesus aside. Why won't you just admit that those crazy, outlandish stories in the Bible are not actual, documented, real-life stories? I mean, mature adults actually believe in talking snakes, a man-made boat floating over a flooded earth. Here's my favorite story. Did you know the Bible has superheroes? There was this guy named Samson who could take on the powers of the Lord at will whenever he got angry, kind of like the Incredible Hulk. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is from Judges, and this is one of the funniest parts of this Samson story. I'll read a little bit. It says, "And when he came unto Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosened from his hands. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith. And Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of an ass, have I slain 1,000 men." Samson killed 1,000 men with the power of the Lord, with the jawbone of an ass. What was that supposed to look like? That's only 175. 1,000 men. You see, the funny thing is, back in the old Christianity days, there must have been all kinds of people that back then thought these stories were just bogus. How do I know that? Let me show you what I mean. You see, in Paul's epistles to Timothy and to Titus, he explains to both of these men not to focus on these old stories of the Old Testament. He tells Timothy, neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which minister questions, rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do. You know what genealogies are, right? Genealogies are these: Sirigus beget Nahor, Nahor beget Terah, Shem beget Eber, Joktan beget Elmer. Endless genealogies and Jewish fables. He says in Titus, neither giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth. Clearly these old Christians wanted to steer away from these bedtime stories and campfire fables. They didn't know that 300 or 400 years later, some political priests would get together at the Council of Nicaea and put all these stories together in one book and call it God's Word. So even then, even they called these Old Testament stories fables. It says, don't give heed to these old Jewish fables. So my question is, why don't you follow the Bible?